Welcome back to the channel. We have not looked at the Power of the Force 2 line in a long time, so I thought it'd be a good idea just to see if there was anything on eBay that had sold over the last month or two, and I did find some sales that were worth talking about, some interesting variants that we may or may not have talked about. Sometimes I think about it or I see a Facebook post about it, and then I forget to actually talk about it on the channel, so I don't know what I've covered and what I've not covered, but overall some very interesting variants that have sold recently for the Power of the Force 2 line that came out from 1995 to 2000. So thanks for those of you that watch the channel regularly, and let's take a look. The first one is something that I'm an expert at having a micro saber. And this one is a Error micro saber green card Obi-Wan Kenobi. You can see there that this one has a particularly short saber inside a tray that holds the medium-sized saber. So, for those of you that are unfamiliar, the Power of the Force 2 line for certain figures, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, they started out with sabers that were basically as tall as the figure. They realized they were too long, and so they shortened those down to a smaller saber. But certain figures, and for a very short time, they came out with what's called a micro saber, like you see here, where it's even smaller than the second size down. So I don't know if you'd really call this one a transition tray. The transition tray were really for the long saber inner tray that held the figure and the saber, and they moved down to that second size saber. This is actually the smallest that was used for the medium size saber. Hopefully that makes sense, but there are examples out there for this micro saber, and it's not something you see all that often. They come up somewhat, and there are all kinds of weird different colors, and it just depends on who you talk to, but this one is kind of a darker green saber, and I've got another example of that for Luke here in a second, but this one was sold by Matthew I. He goes by Power of the Force 2 Happy Place on eBay as well as on Facebook. He's got a Facebook page as well called Power of the Force 2 Happy Place, and he does sell regularly both on his Facebook page as well as in Deal or No Deal. And this one did sell for $102. This is something that we've talked about. I used to have some of these. This is called a Kenner Standard Tagged Power of the Force 2. And these are basically factory samples that have this green tag. They're testing out the equipment. And one of the QA engineers is, I think, a guy named Brian. And he's the most common signature on these QA labels, these Kenner Standard labels or tags. And this one was listed for $90 and sold in a best offer accepted. 130point.com is still not working, so I don't know for sure what this one sold for. I've tried it on a number of different items, and it says, error code. So I'm not sure what's going on there with the best offer lookup. This one did have a crease at the top of the card, which is not uncommon for a lot of these Kenner Standard green tag items because they were passed around to different engineers internally over at Kenner/Hasbro when they were testing out the equipment, making sure everything's good before they went into final production. And so oftentimes they are beat up just because they were handled and transferred internally among different employees to get the final sign off. And that's what's happening here. You got marketing department, I'm guessing here, marketing department, engineering, the independent engineer, purchasing person, the QA, packaging, another QA. So there's a lot of different people. HFE stands for Hasbro Far East. So a lot of times you'll see some that have foreign languages with the sign off. So this one, again, was, I think, the Smile Factory. You can see that in the upper right-hand corner, and it's dated 1/20/98, which is right around when Kenner was moving over to Hasbro. Hasbro, I think in 1997 is when they bought Kenner. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, that one did sell, $90, best offer accepted. This same seller also had a Episode 1 Fan Festival Japanese exclusive. So as part of the release of the Episode 1 Phantom Menace, they had this Japanese festival, and they took Power of the Force figures and then slapped this sticker on the back for Darth Vader. So pretty cool item there. And that one sold for $100 best offer. This is probably one, again, I can't remember if I've spoken about this on the channel or not. I think I have. But there is a particular Vader variant that has this huge head. His head is a lot bigger than what you found at retail. And this does a good job of showing just how big that head is. Look at that. Look at the size of Vader's head there. He is, the HGH and the horse steroids seem to have affected not only his muscles, but the size of his head. Barry Bonds wants a word with you. And this one, this one was listed for $230. And again, this one also had that same Fan Festival Japanese sticker on the back. I don't know if this is the same one as this one. Let's see here. Yeah, so this does a good job here. So if you look at the same angle for, there we go. So this is the fat head, Vader, and this is the normal size head. Fat head, normal size head. So it is quite a bit larger. It's quite a bit larger. And it's interesting that he had two different examples with the same sticker, same Fan Festival exclusive, but it had two different size figures or two variants of Darth Vader inside the blister. So just an interesting one. I think this one was actually in the Deal or No Deal group, and it never did sell. So whoever it was, they decided to list it on eBay, and it did sell at $230. Best offer accepted. Again, another one from the same seller. This one has the Tommy Takara distribution sticker on the back, and this one had the normal size head Darth Vader as well on a green card, collection 3. And that one was listed for $100, best offer accepted. Next up, same seller had a Mara Jade signed by Shannon Baxa, and you can see their certificate of authenticity, Shannon Baxa. So signed on February 23rd of 2001. It also did include an actor slide. And this is one we've seen before on the channel. So that one is pretty cool. And that one sold in an auction for $70, which is probably the cheapest I've seen. Now, I don't know who this person is. I don't know if she was like a likeness for a comic book or what, but Red Mercury exclusive and autographed in the upper left-hand corner. And that one sold for cheap, $70. Next up, we've got a graded item. This is a CAS graded Han Solo mail-away. I believe this was a Kellogg's mail-away for on the cereal boxes. Don't quote me again on that, but you can see there. Yeah, Kellogg's mail order exclusive graded CAS 80+. And that one was listed for $350. Best offer accepted. I probably wouldn't pay anywhere near that price. I think you can probably get one of these yourself, ungraded, for sub $100 and send it in yourself to be graded. But that one did sell. It was listed at, it was graded, at CAS 80+ and sold for $350. Best offer accepted. Another interesting one. This does a really good job of what I was talking about earlier with the Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so the original sabers for those figures, Luke, all the different variations of Luke, including Luke Dagobah, Luke X-Wing, Luke Farm Boy, and then Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, they all started with this saber that, again, was about the same size. It was really about the same size as the figure. Then they transitioned over to the medium-sized saber, but oftentimes they had the inner tray left over for the original long saber. So they packed in the new revised saber with the inner tray for the long saber. Those are called the transition trays. Those are they can be, not always, they can be very expensive. Luke Dagobah is not. Luke X-Wing is probably a little more expensive. Luke Farm Boy is very expensive for these transition trays. And there's also, the transition trays for Vader, and very rare for Obi-Wan Kenobi. They do exist, as we saw in my last Power of the Force 2 video. At the end of this video, I'll include a link to the last Power of the Force 2 video that I made, because I think we did see in that video an example of the Obi-Wan, and there's a handful of those that exist. They're very, very rare. So that's what's considered the medium-sized saber, and then the micro saber, like we saw on the Obi-Wan Kenobi at the beginning of this video, is what you see here. So this photo does a really nice job of showing the 3 different saber sizes. And for all 3 of these together, for Luke Dagobah, all 3 variants, this one sold for $116 for all 3 of those together. And then going back to the different saber variants, again, this is kind of an iffy variant that most people probably wouldn't even notice if they had it in hand. I think you would take having multiple examples of the long saber, but this is called the green saber instead of kind of a bluish saber. And you can see it's a little bit more of a matte finish. It's a little bit less translucent, and it's got a more greenish color to it versus the more common bluer saber. So this is called the green saber variation, and that one sold for $100, best offer accepted. And again, I apologize, I don't have the final sales prices, but 130 point is just not working this week for some reason. Next up, again, we've got the long saber, and so this, again, we'll do a nice variation or a nice comparison showing you what the blue saber looks like, so you can see how blue that saber is, versus this one that is got kind of a greenish color to it. So it is definitely a variation. I'm just saying that most people, even in hand, they probably wouldn't even realize that they have it. So this one was an AFA uncirculated 90 for the long saber Luke X-Wing, and that one sold in an auction for $120. This was the US red card. On to some Boba Fett variations, and I'm really surprised that this is the case, but I guess it's because Jeremy Bulloch just signed so many items. It's kind of like Dave Prowse. Dave Prowse and Jeremy Bulloch, they unfortunately have both passed away, but because they really hit the convention circuit so much in their later years that there are a lot of examples autographed by both of those actors. And the price of those has gone down quite a bit. So this one was a red card Boba Fett. This one had the half circles, as you can see there. Well, this one's actually the full circles. I don't know why they said half circles. I'm trying to find a better photo to see if it's just the angle. But I think that this auction listing title is mislabeled because to me it looks like the full circles on the hand. And so that's the most common for Boba Fett, is the full black circles on the back of the hand. And this one, again, was signed by Jeremy Bulloch, and it was listed for $125. Best offer accepted on that one. And here was another one. Now, this one was also the full circles, so this is the exact same item. And you can see there a better photo of the full circles on his hand there. So full circle variation, again, the red card for Boba Fett, signed by Jeremy Bulloch, and that one also sold for $125, best offer accepted. Here was another one from Power Droid. Power Droid, usually we know from the Vintage Collection sales and the Vintage Collection videos that I do. This one was the freeze frame action slide for Boba Fett with the full circles. That one sold for $150, which is about what I expected to sell for. I also had one that was an AFA 90, or it might have been an 85 plus, somewhere in there, and it sold for about the same price at $150. Here was a more rare one. So this one had no skull on the shoulder. And as we talk about all the time in these Power of the Force videos, there are a lot of different errors for Boba Fett. You could have the half circles on the hands. You could have the no circle on a hand or both hands, which we're going to show you in a second. And then there's examples where he's missing the emblem, the skull emblem for Boba Fett on the shoulders. And so this one is no skull on shoulder, Power of the Force 2 freeze frame, AF8 9.0 gold label. That one sold for $350, so a big number on that because of the missing emblem on the shoulder. And then here was one that, as I just talked about, this is, I don't know if I'd call it a holy grail, but this one has the half circle that you can see right there. That does a nice job of showing it, and that's what the half circle looks like. But on the other hand, he's got no circle. So this is probably the most desirable variant, in my opinion, is to have no circle on the hands. In terms of the hand variations, the no circle at all on one hand is the most desirable. Now, when you get into the missing skull emblem on the shoulder, this one does have the skull emblem. The skull emblem, I feel like, is a little bit more valuable than the no the no circle on hand. It's a little bit more common, but both of them are very desirable variants. But this one did sell for $250. And then we've got another autograph. Again, as I mentioned, Dave Prowse's signature was very, very common on Power of the Force 2 items, both retail examples like this one or the convention exclusives. But this one sold for $125, best offer accepted. And then, the freeze frame action slide weequay is another one that has gone down. This one sold for $125, best offer accepted. I did find another one at auction that sold for under $100. So this one used to be very pricey, over $300, $300 to $350 very regularly. And it's only because it was, it had a very small manufacturing batch. It's always the freeze frame action slide, not just the regular weequay with the sticker to the left of the figure. It's the freeze frame action slide specifically, and the US card. There is a Kenner Canada or a Hasbro Canada version that has the French language. That freeze frame action slide is also pricey, but not nearly as pricey usually as the US card. But this one sold for $125, and again, I did find one sub $100 in an auction, so that one has really come back down to earth a lot. Some other graded items I wanted to show you before we wrap things up. This was a Tauntaun with Luke Hoth, graded AFA 80+. That one sold in an auction for $175. And here was one that just sold the other day. This was the Power of the Force 2 freeze frame 8D8. That one sold for $80. It was an uncirculated 85. I sent that out to my Patreon supporters. Whoever bought it, thank you for using the eBay affiliate links. Next up, we have an AFA 85 for the Death Star droid. That one sold for $130 in a buy it now situation. And then I've got some really interesting prototypes that I wanted to show you. I did not see this when it was originally listed, but this was from Villains, a seller that we cover all the time. And he had a pre-production Power of the Force 2 Chromalin figure layout for those deluxe figures. So it's got the riot gear Stormtrooper. It has the deluxe Luke Farm Boy with that little speeder, and then he also had the Han Solo with that strange kind of device he had. I don't know what the name of it was, but it was like a fold-out Chromalin with a sign-off sheet there. It included a Magnographics creative marketing. This, I believe, is from Kim Simmons, the photographer for a lot of the Kenner items, and then it also included like an envelope that included it. So this was basically photos from Kim Simmons on kind of a weird fold-out, very long Chromalin. I wouldn't exactly call this a Chromalin proper because those are like on hardboard with kind of some, photography edging along the sides that you see normally on Chromalins. But this is kind of like a some kind of photographer pre-production piece, and this one did sell for big money in an auction, $535.99 plus $30 shipping. Toy Curious is a seller that is over in the UK that deals with pre-production items, not only for Star Wars, but for other toy lines. And he had this first shot Han Solo from just the head for the Power of the Force 2 line. It's kind of in a weird, wacky color. Very small item, obviously. And he had a number of them in this baggie. So that one, again, the seller had a number of them, and they were selling them individually for 30 pounds, which is $40 US. And then likewise, he had the same head with a partial body. It did not have the crotch piece, but it had the torso piece, the front and back, as well as both arms and both legs. That sold for 45 pounds plus, which is $61 plus shipping. So again, just some interesting sales on eBay for the Power of the Force 2 line. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.